Díomh Cordia Fáilte Rashkity Cúilín Media. Hello everyone, welcome back to another weekend preview show here on Cúilín Media with myself, Seamus Brady, Matthew Hurley and Aaron Prendergast. Liam White unfortunately can't be with us for this show, but it is, lads, our first show of 2026, and if you're watching, we're delighted to have you along with us. We'd love you to get involved in the live chat down below. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and get involved. Get on the team for 2026. It's going to be a big year, lads. Matthew, I'll throw over to you first. Big shout to you, obviously running the end of year awards competition. And how was your Christmas period?
Yeah, I can't complain, Seamus. Well, it's the Christmas holidays have been ruined. The fact that Liverpool just drew against Leeds, 0-0. I was actually working on the stats and stuff for the weekend's games, and then I just went into Liverpool Leeds for the last few minutes and seen it was 0-0, and I was like, that's crap. But anyway, we'll move on to the games this weekend. Look, some interesting games, I suppose, and some interesting games later on down the line as well. The league is kicking off in the next few weeks as well. There's a few pre-season games as well, if we even care about those, to be honest. I wouldn't have done so last year, but it's action, isn't it? There's only one game on Sunday. That's Brigid and Scotstown. So we may as well talk about the pre-season competitions. They are coming back now. And we'll see Longford turn to prime Brazil, I'm sure, in the next few weeks. But anyway, looking forward to getting into the action.
Yeah, certainly, Aaron. I'd be interested to see that. Longford, as Matthew said here, they have a tendency to turn up good for the O'Byrne Cup. I think they've won the last two, have they?
Yeah, they've won the last two. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, they just turn into prime Barcelona or something when it comes to pre-season competitions. But yeah, no, looking forward to it. Like, I'm going to the game on Saturday in Laois, between Laois and Dublin. So yeah, I suppose when you have a lack of intercounty football for so long, it's nearly like, oh yeah, one game is back. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what competition. Doesn't matter who they're playing. It's like, sign me absolutely up for it. So yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing who's on show and everything else. I think aside from that, you're not really too bothered about results or anything like that. It's just to see some football. But yeah, no, looking forward to getting into the games. Happy New Year to everyone who follows the channel, and of course to you lads as well. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely so. And Liam drops in here saying, evening lads, sorry I can't be on tonight. Looking forward to the games this weekend. Longford will be 100% up for the O'Byrne Cup. They certainly will be. Dublin is great. Also says Happy New Year to all. Yeah, we hope everybody that is with us had a great Christmas period and had a great, obviously, New Year's celebration last night. And now we're into 2026 and ready to smash another year out of the park. We're going to start off, lads, by touching on the results of the Fan Choice Awards. So obviously they are all up on the Cúilín Media Instagram page. But Matthew, you are running the competition, just to remind everybody of who won what awards. So the start off, the moment of the year was Kilbrittain winning the Cork Premier Junior Hurling Championship on the late Oisín Gillane's birthday, of course. Such a symbolic moment. The football goal of the year was Joe O'Connor's goal for Kerry against Cork in the Munster Senior Football Championship semi-final. The hurling goal of the year was Brian Hayes's for Cork against Dublin in the All-Ireland semi-final. The football point of the year was David Clifford's buzzer beater against Donegal at the end of the first half in the All-Ireland final. What an extraordinary score that was. The hurling point of the year was Decky Dalton's score for Cork against Dublin. That was a boomer. The football game of the year was Kerry beating Cork after extra time in the Munster Senior Football Championship semi-final by 321 to 125. The hurling game of the year was Cork beating Limerick in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship final on penalties. Cork 130, Limerick 227 was the score after extra time. The controversy of the year was the Shorts versus Scorts debacle, which happened in Camogie. The shock team of the year was voted as the Kildare Hurlers. The club of the year was Kilbrittain in County Cork. The team of the year was voted as the Kerry Senior Football Team. The funniest moment of the year was the Cork fan presuming Cork were going to win the All-Ireland and, of course, getting the All-Ireland winning tattoo. The quote of the year was by Ronan Marr after he was accepting the cup after Tipperary won that All-Ireland final earlier in 2025 in the summer. He said, "We carried your spirit with us every step of the way. You were in the dressing room. You were on the field of play. You were in our hearts." And of course, that was in memory of their late teammate Dylan Quirk in a beautiful moment by Ronan Marr. The shock of the year was voted as Dublin knocking Limerick out of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. The individual performance of the year was voted as Stephen Sherlock's unbelievable display, scoring 16 points for St. Finbarrs against Dingle in Munster Club football final. While the song of the year was, lads, the most slam dunk vote out of the bunch. It was voted as Killa by Kingfisher, was voted as the song of the year. Matthew, you were running the competition. Is there any award that surprised you? Any pick that surprised you?
Well, moment of the year, looking at it, just bouncing down as you might look at it and say it's a surprise with Kilbrittain winning the award, in fairness. But Kilbrittain, to be fair to Kilbrittain GA, you have to give them a lot of credit. They wanted to win as much as they could on the Cúilín Media Awards, so they shared it on their stories. And look, every club should do it next year. That's basically it. Get your fans to vote, and that's how you win these awards. And look, it was a memorable moment, in fairness, and it was a devastating occasion for the club, obviously, with Oisín Gillan passing away with sudden adult death syndrome. That was just a tragic moment. But this Kilbrittain team has proven the doubters wrong in many ways in going all the way to the All-Ireland final, and hopefully they can get over the line against Eastskey next weekend. So that was a powerful moment, I would say. The scores of the year probably were decent enough score. I think Joe Connors was certainly deserved in the football goal of the year, the hurling goal of the year. Brian Hayes, I think there was good in individual build-up play, but I'm surprised Oisín O'Donoghue against Kilkenny didn't win it, to be honest with you. I thought it was this superb finish into the top corner. Look at the points of the year. Again, football, you couldn't really complain. David Clifford, worthy winner there. Hurling point of the year, probably not really Decky Dalton. I probably would have gone Dermot Healy, but it could have gone either way, in fairness. Football game of the year, I thought without doubt it was Cork against Kerry because of the quality of it. And hurling game of the year, maybe because of the drama of penalties for Cork and Limerick. I didn't think it was the best quality of game, and you could see Marty Morris wasn't that excited in commentary in it, so I'm not sure that was the game of the year. Probably Kilkenny Tipperary, but that was probably voted. Controversy of the year, again, like the song of the year, I think this was a slam dunk as well as Scarce versus Shorts, because everybody was talking about it, even though it was Camogie, everyone was talking about it throughout the whole year. Shock team of the year, I'm delighted about that award. Kildare Hurlers winning it, because the Joe McDonagh, they won that competition after losing to Kerry in the first round. They proved the doubt was wrong, and hopefully they can prove the doubt was wrong next year in the Leinster Championship. It will be a challenge, but we'll see what happens with the Kildare Hurlers. Club of the year, obviously Kilbrittain, thanks to their many voters. Team of the year, Kerry footballers, I've already touched on it. I don't think they probably deserve it, but look, other people think they do, but there you go. Funniest moment, he had the tattoo, was a worthy winner. I think Ronan Marr's a worthy winner of quote of the year. Shock of the year, of course, Dublin beating Limerick. Individual performance, you can't knock Stephen Sherlock for scoring 16 points. And the song of the year was, as you said, a slam dunk with Killa. So I would say 3 or 4 are debatable, but I think the rest of them are pretty much in line with the expected winners there.
Yeah, no question there. I missed the last bit of the sentence. I think my Wi-Fi lagged for the last 5 words that you said in the sentence there. But Aaron, yourself, looking at the awards, looking at the end of the year awards, is there anything in particular that surprised you? Any way that you would have strayed from what the results were?
Not too much, no. I think a lot of them are fairly spot on, to be fair. Maybe game of the year in football, I probably would have maybe edged a little bit towards Donegal Armagh in the Ulster final, or even the game I mentioned earlier on in the league of Kerry versus Derry. I probably would have maybe edged towards that. The votes did seem very Munster teams, to be fair. I know, to be fair, look, Cork or Limerick or Tipperary won the All Ireland, and you had 2 Munster teams in the final. Kerry winning the All Ireland as well. So a lot of the Munster teams did do very well, to be fair. But yeah, I probably would have gone with Donegal Armagh maybe as the game of the year. But look, obviously we did a 2-hour show a couple of days ago looking at the moment. So if you want to hear a difference of opinions, do check that out. But yeah, probably that's the main one I'd differ on.
Yeah, and do check out as well our end of year show. It was great crack. Obviously, we had a full house for that one, and we were joined by the man himself, Sean Carroll, who came on as a host for the quiz for Matthew and Liam against myself and Aaron. And little spoiler, me and Aaron were not successful on our occasion. Matthew and Liam together was simply too strong. But we are going to jump into the games now, lads, and thank you to Matthew for putting all of these together. We have, of course, in-depth stats on each of the teams that we are going to dive into now, and there are 3 main games that we're going to take deep dives into, and they are the All-Ireland Senior Camogie Championship Final replay and the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-finals, which are taking place on Saturday and Sunday between Brigid and Scotstown and Dingle and Ballyboden St. Endas. But we are going to start off with the replay of the All-Ireland Senior Camogie Championship Final. Athenry against St. Finbarrs, round 2. This is on Saturday at 5:15 in Semple Stadium. Matthew, this promises to be some contest.
It does, and to be fair, the drawing game was tight at some stages. Maybe the Bars kind of let it slip maybe in the last few minutes of that game, but to be fair, Athenry, they came back into the game and they deserved it without a doubt. Like, we were talking, I'd say, after the game, and we would have said, like, if the game happened a week before Christmas, we would have fancied Athenry because the momentum would have been behind them after leaving it late on. But now, like, Christmas has passed, New Year's, the festivities, all that has passed. It's now a level playing field again. And you just wonder from an Athenry point of view, if they start maybe as slow as they did, if they start as slow as they did, particularly in the second half, as they did in the original game, could they be in a bit of trouble? And the fact was as well, Orla Callan, the Bars' kind of main creator, was kind of marked out of the game by Dervla Higgins. You would imagine the Bars will have a plan up their sleeve to kind of counteract that. The Bars also will have a plan up their sleeve to counteract Therese Donoghue, who had an absolutely excellent game in the original game. She scored 3 points from play. Obviously, she's 43, 44 years of age. It's still going, which is absolutely remarkable. Obviously, to us all, we probably know her as Therese Marr, but what an exceptional player she was. And she was a brilliant player in the original game, and she will be a threat in this game as well. But the Bars might have a better plan up their sleeve as well, and they know how to close out the game. So, like, in many ways, I do think the Bars are probably the most impressive team when you look at it overall in the original game. It's a clean slate now. But I think if you were to ask who would have learned more from the last game, Athenry or the Bars, I would have said the Bars in certain aspects in closing out the game in terms of counteracting Athenry's game plan. I think the Bars probably are in a better place going into this replay, especially with this replay happening after Christmas and after New Year's. So, but it should be an interesting game. And obviously, this is the first trophy, I think, handed out in 2026. So, should be an interesting time.
It certainly should be. Aaron, when you're talking about that, like, the stage is set by their previous encounter. Like, there was nothing between the sides. The late equaliser for Athenry obviously sent the game to a replay. Which camp would you rather be in? Matthew was talking about that the Bars learnt more. I think that's debatable. I think the one thing I will say is I think Athenry have more of an improvement to make in their performance. Which camp would you rather be in, Aaron, going into this replay?
It's a hard one to know. Like, to be honest, I'd nearly look at Athenry a little bit, to be honest, in the sense that, like, they probably should have been dead and buried. Like, they should have been beaten. Like, the Bars had them there, and they had a big lead on them. They had to jump at them, to jump on them towards the end of the game, and didn't put them away. And how many times have we saw in the past before where, if you don't take your chances and your opportunities, goes to a replay. It was Athenry who, although Bars were playing the better stuff. Bars were the better team. There's no question about that with how they played. But I just think for Athenry, like, they do have another level to go up on. They do have improvements to go up on. And given what they've achieved so far this season, I think we'd all say their performance against the Bars probably wasn't to the standard that we would have hoped for. A lot of that was down to the brilliant stuff that the Bars did. So yeah, like the Bars will feel like as long as they do what they did in the final, they'll they should have enough to win it. But at the same time, I would look at Athenry and think that they played poorly probably for the majority of the game, still managed to get a draw over, and they're the ones that need to kind of fix the problems and fix the issues. So yeah, I'd probably actually nearly rather be in the Athenry camp, to be honest.
Yeah, we are going to go into the deep dive here. Liam says, I worry for Athenry if they start slowly again. For me, while they did great to fight till the end, it was more for me a game that the Bars threw away. Peter saying Athenry just about got out of jail. Ollie Rabbit is carrying an injury. The reality is, I think you can't spell it out as anything other than that. The Bars had the game in the palm of their hands, and it was a combination of them failing to finish it off and Athenry showing incredible fighting spirit to get back into the contest. Dublin is great saying the Bars threw the drawn game away. They should win this. by about 5 or 6. So he's nailing his colours to the mast here on that one. But let's jump in with the deep dive on both sides, starting off with Athenry, their journey to the final. As you can see there, they started off beating Mulla by 11 points to 9, then beating Clarenbridge 316 to 2-9. Then they lost to Sarsfields, interestingly, by 14 points to 11. 121 to 9 points. They bounced back to beat Oranmore Marie. Then they beat Davits by 126 to 312. And then they got sweet revenge on Sarsfields in the Galway Camogie final, beating them 2-8 to a goal and 8 to claim the county championship. Then in the All-Ireland Championship Series, they went up in the semi-final against the Leinster champions Dixborough, obviously having no Connacht Championship to compete in. And then they won that game by a goal and 9 to 10 points to get into the All-Ireland final. And then, as you can see, 112 to St. Finbarrs is 15 points in the original contest. They've scored a total of 9 goals and 114 points. It's an average of 115 a game. And they've conceded a total of 686, an average of 110 per game. So an average winning margin of 5 points. And the key scorers then for Athenry going into this contest, Sabina Rabbit leads the way with 158. Emer Keane also strong with 210. Kerry O'Driscoll with 112. Jessica Gill with 27. Clodagh Burke with 19. Therese Donoghue with 7. Eve McGlynn with 4. And then you can see down the list there. So starting off, lads, just on Athenry, Aaron, I'll go to you first. Looking at what their strengths are, you have to think the moment where it turned was the sweet revenge on Sarsfields and finally putting them to the sword.
Absolutely, yeah. Like that was where they kind of kicked into gear and kind of turned the game on its head, really. And you know, as we were saying previously, like with some of the errors that they made, going into the game, like you'd be confident enough, given how strong and how well they've played throughout the season, that they won't make them same errors and same mistakes again. But yeah, look, they're coming in strong, as you said, with some of the scores. Like Emer Keane's been in phenomenal form with 210, 2-8 of which from play. Someone was saying there in the comments that Sabina Rabbit is injured, so I'm not too sure if you lads know about that, but that'll obviously be a big.
That's all on Rabbit, I think.
Oh, what was it? Oh, okay. Ollie Rabbit, okay. But yeah, like obviously, yeah. So having her available then is going to be absolutely huge. But yeah, no, I think Athenry are coming in. They're coming in pretty strong. And yeah, I think they'll definitely give this the best game they have. You know,
Matthew, what was the main point for you where it turned?
Yeah, it was probably the goal towards the end by Anna Jordan. Like, it was a kind of a fluky goal. It came off the post, and you know, the Bars, you could argue, didn't react properly to that kind of situation. But I think it was Therese Dunn who actually took the initial shot after having so much pressure put on her. The ball hits the post, and to be fair to Anna Jordan, she reacted very, very quickly and put the ball in the back of the net. But since then, I think the Bars kind of panicked. They didn't finish out the game after that. But you have to give credit to Athenry, who knocked on the door completely after that. And Caleb Batten, who coincidentally has only got 3 points in this campaign across the Galway Championship, across the All-Ireland as well, was the player to get the equalising score. She's only got 3 points in this campaign. So, like, he's kind of it's kind of funny. And we'll look at the Bar scores in a bit as well. Like, Ciara Golden scored one of the Bar's most important scores, the winning score against Lockheed Shamrocks, and she's only scored 4 points this campaign. And Caleb Batten has scored very few for Athenry. So I think that's a kind of an indication that every player is going to be important this Saturday in this final. Every player is going to play a part in this. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game when you look at that. But yeah, like, you'd worry from an Athenry point of view, their energy maybe towards the end. If they exert so much energy towards the start, like, look, Therese Donoghue has done absolutely brilliant things for Galway Camogie, but she is getting on. So is Jessica Gill. Sabina Rabbit is probably the outlier, probably the younger one of them players in the team, and she's got 158, which is very, very impressive. But when you look at the majority of the Athenry team, they've kind of been there, done that. They're very, very experienced, but at the same time as well, they might run out of legs as well. Whereas you look at the Bars players, they seem to have a kind of a younger team, which might be an advantage to them. So it'll be very, very interesting to see kind of the dynamics between them. And let's not forget as well, I know she's not on the scorers list, but Dervla Higgins is going to be massive in this game. She's the Athenry captain. She marked Orla Callahan out of the game. I think she will be absolutely massive in this game. Will she do a better job as she did in the previous game? You would like to imagine from a Bars point of view that it would have done a better job since the last game. So I think Athenry would have to have a plan for that if that does come eventually. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. But I think in defence, in the middle in particular, Athenry are very, very strong. In attack, other than Sabina Rabbit, they might struggle a bit, but we'll have to see what happens. Like Emer Keane has done absolutely brilliant throughout the championship. She was very well shackled in the last game, I would say. So, like, could she catch fire in the next game? It is going to be very interesting to see.
How much does the switch of venue change everything on? Because now it's obviously on in Semple Stadium. The Croke Park factor isn't a thing now in this game.
Yeah, well, look, it probably benefits the Bars a lot more, you'll imagine. Probably in regards to that, like they probably have a bit more familiarity with Semple Stadium. I don't really think it should change a huge amount, though, to be honest with you. Like when you look at Athenry, like it's not, they would have been coming to Croke Park originally. It's probably a less of a distance now, in fairness. So I don't really think it should change a huge amount. Like it might just favour the Bars a little bit. But I definitely don't think you should. I think maybe in other games, sometimes you'd look at venue changes as a potential reason for one team having more than another. But I don't really think the venue change should really change much in regards to this.
Yeah, Dublin is great coming in with a great point. You have to remember the Bars played the Munster final in Thurles. Look, the reality is, Matthew, when we know how tight these teams are, it's going to be a blade of grass that will make the difference most likely between the two of them. We saw on the final day, Athenry snatching it back right at the death to rescue the draw. Let's dive in, though, firstly, before my next question to you, to the Bars. So their journey to the final, obviously in the Cork Senior Championship, they started off by beating Blackrock by 3-16 to 2-8. Then they beat Inniscarra by 2-18 to a goal and 12. They then beat St. Catherine's by 3-14 to 2-12. And beat Killala by 4-20 to 13 points. Then they beat Blackrock 2-15 to 9 points. And then in the Cork Senior Camogie Championship final, Finbarrs beat Catherine's by 15 points to 9. So relatively straightforward, it has to be said, in the Cork Championship. Then in the Munster Senior Championship, they beat Newcastle West in an absolute war, 2-19 to 3-14 after extra time. Then they beat De La Salle 3-11 to 2-12 in the Munster Camogie final to get into the All-Ireland semi-finals, and which then they had another war against Lochiel Shamrocks, beating them 3-15 to 3-14 after extra time again. And then they got to the final where, of course, they drew 15 points to a goal and 12 with Athenry setting up the replay. They've scored a total of 22 goals and got 158 points. That's an average of 216 per game, and they've conceded a total of 14 goals and 115 points, an average of 113 a game. So an average winning margin of 6 points. And their key scorers, Saoirse McCartan obviously leads the way with 6 goals and 59 points, an outrageous tally. Kevin McCarthy with 236, Orla Cahalan with 618, Kate Wall with 214, Emer Hurley with 4-5, Nicole Olin with 14 points, and then you see down the rest of the list. So certainly, Matthew, your point about earlier on when you were talking about the firepower, there's no doubt the Bars' numbers jump off the page a lot more.
They do, and that's including the Galway Championship with an Athenry kind of standpoint as well. To be fair, Sabina Rabbits put up a big number, 1 goal and 58 points. Saoirse McCartan does 6 goals and 59 points. That is pretty good. And to be fair, ever since she has come down to Cork, she has excelled in intercounty and in club as well. Obviously, she is a down woman, and it was kind of an interesting dynamic in the All-Ireland final. Herself and Niamh Mallon both were in the down team a couple of years ago, and they play against each other in an All-Ireland final. It was mad to think that. But ever since Saoirse has come down to Cork, she's been absolutely outstanding. You look at Kate Wall there as well, obviously a West Cork woman. We mentioned Kilbrittain earlier in the chat about the end of year awards. She's actually the Kilbrittain captain's twin, Philip. So, like, she comes from Kilbrittain originally, but she is a very, very good player as well. Orla Cahalan, obviously daughter of Niall, absolute legend of Gaelic football in Cork. Obviously brothers in Conor, Damien, Jack. So she is from an esteemed family. Emer Hurley's very, very good off the bench, I think, from a Bars point of view, and it adds that firepower. Like every time I've seen her come off the bench, she seems to score maybe a goal or a point. Like, she scored a brilliant goal against Newcastle West in the Munster semi-final. She scored a brilliant point as well in the final. Maybe could have put the ball over the bar for the last play. I think it was herself or Ella Wigton Barrett. It was one of them two. Kind of dealt with the ball, in fairness, but they probably should have put it over the bar. But look, Emer Hurley can add a whole lot off the bench, in fairness. Nicole Olden scored 3 points from play in the original game against Athenry, and Like, will she have that kind of a performance in her locker again? I'm not sure. Like, she's been brilliant throughout the whole championship. 14 points from play is very, very good. But Athenry will be a lot more tuned in on her, whereas like they were a lot more tuned in on Orla Callahan, obviously, because Orla is an inter-county player. She's one of the stars for Cork. She's one of the stars for Bars. And she was one of the main players in their win over Lockheed Shamrocks in the semi-final, and particularly the Munster final as well. So obviously, Athenry were going to keep an eye on Orla Callahan, but they will keep another eye on Nicole Olden in this game as well. And with Athenry keeping an eye on Nicole Olden because of the original final performance, does that give Orla Callahan more space on the pitch? If it does, that is serious danger for Athenry, because if you give her any sense of space, she is an absolutely excellent player and she will exploit it. And you've other players there like Ciara Golden, Elliot Wiggins, the Bars, Emma Olden, Ashley Shannon, who really have contributed well for the Bars in this campaign as well. And this has been kind of I would say a long time coming, in fairness. Like Stephanie Punch, I heard her on Off the Ball even before the original game, talked to Owen Sheehan, and she was saying that, yes, like the Bars have only won 3 Cork titles in Camogie. It's hard to believe. 2006, 2024, and 2025. So only 3 titles. They're kind of outshadowed by their men's side in hurling and football. But it is kind of a club that you would expect to have All-Ireland accolades, that you would expect to have Munster accolades. And now they're stepping up to the plate in Camogie now. And it'd be a brilliant achievement if the Bars can do it. That they'll be the only, if they do it this weekend, they'll be the only club in history to win an All-Ireland senior title in 3 different codes out of 4. So that'll be an absolutely excellent achievement. So look, there's a lot on the line for the Bars. There's a lot on the line for Athenry. It's going to be an interesting game. But the Bars, you look at the firepower that you released there, Seamus, they have serious ones. And they're not just serious firepower because of the numbers. You have inter-county quality there too, and a lot of it.
Absolutely. So, well, it's that time. It's that time to make your decision, of course, Joe Rabbit, the Athenry Banish store, as Peter says here. Well, it's that time, lads. Time to nail your colours to the mat. My Wi-Fi went for a few seconds there, but I think I'm back. It's that time to nail your colours to the mat. So the All-Ireland Camogie Club Final replay, Athenry or St. Finbarrs, call it. Matthew, I'll go to you first.
I'm going to say, I think the Bars, I do stick by this. I think the Bars would have learned more from the original game, because despite being so far ahead, I think the Bars have much more gears to go up on. There was a lot better performance in the Bars. Orla Callahan, if she gets a lot more space, I do think she can cause damage. And Athenry will have a few other players to think about. The likes of Nicole Olden performed very, very well in the original game, scored 3 points from play. If there's an eye on Nicole Olden, there'll be less of an eye on Orla Callahan. And I think if Orla Callahan gets space, the Bars can do damage. Kate Wall as well, if she gets space, the Bars can do damage there. Athenry, they will depend a lot on Sabina Rabbit and how she will perform in this final. It's going to be very, very tight. And I think in these tight games, Sabina needs to have a very, very good game for Athenry to pull off a result in this one. I just feel like with the quality that they have, with the history that they have, with the inter-county experience that they have in this team, I think the Bars, and the fact that they would have learned more from the original game, I do think the Bars will get over the line. I think the Bars will win this by 3 points.
Very good. Aaron?
Yeah, I think the Bars will win it as well. I think they do have far too much firepower. Like, even when we were looking through the scores there, like they've scored double the amount that the Athenry have scored, you know, like almost double the amount. Like they've far too much firepower. They've so many different ways that they can hurt Athenry, from the likes of Saoirse McCartan, Keevan McCarthy, or like Cahalan. Like they've so much firepower all across the board. I do think it'll be a lot, like, well, the last game was a draw. I do think it'll be a lot closer than people think in that kind of sense. I think Athenry will push them close, and there'll only be 1 or 2 points in it. And I don't think the Bars will ever have as big of a lead as they did in the last game, but I still think the Bars have, and you know, far too much firepower, and they'll win it by 1.
I'm actually going to go the other way. I think Athenry are going to do it. I think when you look at their journey to the final, beating Sarsfields, beating Dixborough, beating the last 2 clubs to win the All-Ireland, and the position that they were in, Finbarrs had them on the ropes and failed to finish them off. And yeah, that's partly due to Finbarrs not closing the game out, but it's also partly due to Athenry's fighting spirit and the leadership from the likes of Therese Donoghue. So I think in a really, really tough battle, I could see Athenry shading it the same way they shaded it against the likes of Stars, the likes of Dixborough. Sabina Rabbit will be key. She'll need to have an unbelievable game, but I think she will. And I think in a tight game, I think they might shade it by a point. So I'm going with Athenry. But only time will tell. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's the Camogie final. Peter nailing his colours to the mast says the Bars by 5. I might regret that pick because I do think that the Bars have the capability to run up a big tally. I do think when you look at the forwards, I do think that I could see a world where Finbarrs actually run away with it. And I couldn't see that on the Athenry side. I don't think that they have the same firepower, but I think they're very, very solid. And I think that's why I'm going with them. And next up, we are going to move on now to the All-Ireland Senior Football semi-finals. And we're going to start off with the clash on Sunday. And what a game this promises to be. St. Brigid's of Roscommon and Connacht going up against Scotstown of Monaghan. And finally, the Ulster champions for the first time since 1989. They clash in the All-Ireland semi-final on Sunday at 3 p.m. at Breffni Park. Aaron, this one has a cracker written all over it.
Yeah, absolutely, it should be. And I think the great thing about the All-Ireland Club Football Championship is that it does feel quite wide open between all 4 teams. Like, I think you could make a case at this moment in time for any team to potentially go and win it. And I think the same applies here as well with these 2 teams. You know, like, you know, if one of you lads said Brigid's or Scotstown, and I went the other way, like, you know, you could make arguments either way. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, I think Scotstown have got all the like flair and the attacking kind of talent. I think Brigid's probably more so have the know-how and the physicality around the park. I think system-wise they're probably set up a little bit better as well. And yeah, like, I think Ben O'Carroll's going to be the big one for them. Brian Stack maybe as well. And then for Scotstown, how do you curtail the influence of Rory Beggins? You know, when he's scoring 11 points the last day. I remember that because it was a quiz question. So yeah, they've got a huge amount of firepower across the board. Conor McCarthy as well. It will be interesting for Scotstown. They spend so long trying to break that duck of getting over the line in Ulster. They were having setback after setback. They've finally now gone and done it. So it'll be interesting to see, can they now go and take that step further and potentially win an All-Ireland, because they definitely have the ability there. I don't think anyone's ever sort of said Scotstown don't have the players. I think it's been more the mental aspect of their game where they've kind of let themselves down on big occasions. So yeah, I'm hugely looking forward to this.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the confidence that winning the Ulster Championship will give them. Peter here saying a begging special maybe to win it. One thing that is being slept on coming into this game is just how good St. Brigid's goalkeeper Conor Carroll is. Like, he is also a fine fella to have between the sticks. And just around the field, Matthew, I feel like they match up really, really well. They have like a calling card each in each position. You've got from a defensive side, I know he kind of plays all over the field, but like in terms of someone that you think of as like a defender who can play further out the field, you think of like maybe a Darren Hughes. And then on the Brigid side, you got an amazing defender in Brian Stack. Then around the middle, you have the likes of Kieran Hughes on one side, Eddie Nolan on the other. Then up top, you have Jack McCarran on one side, Ben O'Carroll on the other. The way they match up is really, really interesting. They seem to have big players, both of them, in each line who are very similar to each other. Obviously, O'Carroll and McCarran, both kit-oaks, both left-footers. They seem to be almost mirror images of each other.
And more than that, Seamus, I think when you look at their runs to the final, we'll bring up in a sec there, like Scotstown have been in extra time in 3 out of the last 4 games. And when you look at the Monaghan final, that went to extra time against Inniskeen Grattans. When you look at the Roscommon final, that went to a replay against Padraig Pearses. So both teams have had draws after normal time in their respective finals. Both sides have blips in their group stages. St. Brigid's losing to Michael Glavies and Scotstown losing to Carduff as well, and drawing against Clontibbert as well. So both sides have had the slip-ups there. They've had the wake-up calls. Both sides have had difficult provincial finals. Mike Cullen really tested Brigid's in so many ways in the Connacht final. Kilcoo obviously did against Scotstown. So both sides have similarities there, and you look at the similarities in terms of personnel, the goalkeepers, the midfielders, the defenders, the attackers as well. Bobby Nugent is another one to mention for Brigid. I'm a real fan of him. He's their top scorer this season, I think, with around 32 points, which is very, very impressive from him. And he's, in a way, shining out Ben O'Carroll in this club championship so far, which is a very, very hard thing to do, obviously. The one thing, and Aaron did touch on this, the one thing I do think Bridges have over Scotstown is the know-how and the ability to close out games. I've mentioned Scotstown have gone to extra time in 3 out of the last 4 games. I would think the last 2 games in particular, from a Scotstown point of view, yes, winning Ulster was brilliant for them. I think that was a concern. The way they allowed Kilcoo back into the game in the Ulster Championship, on any other day, Kilcoo could have taken them. You look at the semi-final against Newbridge, how on earth they allowed Newbridge are a good side. How on earth did they allow them back into the game when they were so far clear ahead in that game? And you just worry from a Scotstown point of view, can they get it away with it for a 3rd time in a row? I'm not sure. If Bridget's, if it's a tight game going down the home stretch, I'd fancy Bridget's just for that reason in itself, because I don't think Scotstown can repeat the trick once again. And obviously Bridget's did that against Mike Cullen. Yes, and if anything, they were behind for most of the game against Mike Cullen, and then they dragged it back. They found a way to win after Rory Fallon got that goal in the kind of final. So I think that could well be the difference between the two sides, the know-how and the ability to close out games. And I think Bridget's have excelled in that more than Scotstown have this year.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. And we're going to now jump into the deep dive section on both teams, starting off with Scotstown. Their journey to this semi-final, obviously you see in the Monaghan Senior Football Championship, they started off with a high-scoring draw against Clontibbert, 122 apiece. Then they beat Trua 19 points to 17, hammered Cromartin 6-18 to 3-10. Then they lost to Corduff 117 to 18 points, bounced back by beating Latin 123 to 11 points. They beat Clontibbert then in the semi-final 215 to 112 before beating Inniskeen 22 points to 17 after extra time in the Monaghan Senior Football Final. Then into the Ulster Championship, they beat Nave Cunnell of Donegal by 216 to 16 points. They then beat Sean O'Leary Newbridge of Derry by 4 points to 2 on penalties, after finishing 220 apiece after extra time. And then, of course, they beat Kilcoo in the Ulster final to claim their first provincial title since 1989. They won that game 19 points to 16 after extra time. They've scored a total of 14 goals and 192 points. That's an average of 120 a game, and conceded a total of 8 goals and 158 points, an average of 115 per game. So an average winning margin of 5 points. While the scorers, Jack McCarron leads away with 136, but look who's right on his heels. The goalkeeper, Rory Beggan, extraordinary stuff, 37 points from him. Max Maguire is up there in 3rd with 25 points. Tommy Mallon with 119. Maddie Maguire with 116. Michal McCarville with 210. Shane Carey with 111. And you see down the list as well. Shout to Darren Murray, who's got 3 goals for himself. But then you see a wide spread of scorers for Scotstown as well. Aaron, one thing that Matthew pointed out really, really well is the miles on the clock, in a sense, for Scotstown, in terms of like just how many times they've already had to go to the well with extra times and everything like that. Whereas Bridges' route here has been a little bit more straightforward. Could that have an impact in this game, especially if it goes down to the wire, which we anticipate that it will?
It could do, yeah, because it shows their resilience, really, doesn't it? The fact that they were able to dig themselves through. Like, even when you're looking through the Monaghan Football Championship, like the results at the start, like the draw the opening day against Clontibbert, like barely getting over the line against Trua, only 2 points in that. Fair enough, they beat Cromartin kind of fairly comfortable. But then like losing to Corduff as well. So yeah, like it does show the resilience. It shows the strength. It shows the character. And look, they have a huge amount of experience across the board. Like, they've players who've been there and done it time and time again with Monaghan, and played in big games, played in the biggest of them all. So they have the experience there. They have the firepower. So it could stand to them. But at the same time, like, Bridget's have shown plenty of that as well. Like coming through the replay in the Roscommon football final. And I remember being on this show, and a lot of people were backing Porrick Pierces to win the replay, and Bridget's were able to kind of overturn that. So like they've kind of had those moments as well. But yeah, it just seems like Scotstown as well, like even with players like Tommy Mallon and Max Maguire and lads like this who are chipping away. And obviously with the regular lads who we always speak about, McCarthy, Beggan, and so on. Like, so yeah, no, I think Scotstown have proven themselves in terms of being able to get over the line this year. Whether it hasn't always been comfortable, that's what you would say about champions, is that they find a way to win. and maybe they can do that again on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd almost argue that they're like winning in spite of themselves. It's like they're almost trying to trip each other up, especially in the Newbridge encounter, Matthew. That's the main one that jumps out for me as being one where I was thinking, like, how on earth have they managed to put themselves in this situation? But they still then found a way to get through. And to be honest, like, there's a part of me that is very much rooting for Scotstown, the way that they play, the footballers that they have, players like Darren Hughes. Like, how could you not admire Darren Hughes? How could you not want Darren Hughes to go and win the ultimate prize? And then their manager, David McCaig, as well. I had the pleasure of meeting him one of the days out with TG4, just an absolute gent. And, like, again, I'd be delighted for him personally if Scotstown were to go on and do it. But their opponents, Brigid, will take some beating. Their route to the semi-final, starting off in the Roscommon Championship, they made light work of Elphin in round 1, beating them by 221 to 1-5. And the same thing with Western Gales, 323 to 15 points. But then they lost to Michael Glavies, 113 to 11 points. They responded to the setback by beating Roscommon Gales 118 to 17, then beat Clonagale 16 points to 11. In the Roscommon final, the first day out was a draw against Pádraig Pearses, 115 apiece. But in the replay, Brigid put Pearses to the sword, 116 to 112. Then in the Connacht Senior Football Championship, they beat Ballina Stephenites of Mayo by 121 to 38. And then in the Connacht final itself, they beat Moycullen of Galway by 116 to 114 to claim the provincial title. They've scored a total of 10 goals and 157 points. That's an average of 118 a game, and conceded a total of 9 goals and 100 points. That's an average of 111 per game. And their key scorers then, Bobby Nugent, as Matthew said there, leads the way with 32 points. Ben O'Carroll hot on his heels with 128. Connor Hand with 16 points and Eddie Nolan with 3-7. Shane Cannan with 15 points. Also huge contributors as well. Kieran Sugu with 112 and Paul McGrath with 12. Rory Fallon and Brian Derwin with 1-9 apiece also deserve a shout. And then you see down the list there, again, Brigid's have a wide array of scorers. Matthew, what game was it? Similar question to the Athenry one. What game was it for Brigid's that you think was their toughest test? The one that has asked the most of them up until this point?
It's a tight one between Pádraig Pearse's game, the original game, and the Moycullen Connacht final. I do think Moycullen probably had more in them in the Connacht final, so I had to go for the Brigid's game. I think that really tested their mettle in so many ways. They could have lost it at certain stages of the game. They got over the line eventually. I think they were very, very impressive in doing that. In a way, though, you could argue the Michael Glavies game kind of changed their season because it kind of made them wake up a bit. I know they lost the game and it was a group game and it was only deciding quarterfinal placings, but we've seen so many teams across the club championship and so many, maybe as you might call them, big dogs, slip up in a group stage game, and then the next day the confidence just isn't there, and they start to slip up even more. Like, I think, for example, down in Cork, Castlehaven, big favourites against Newcestown. They lost the game against Newcestown, and then they fell apart in the quarterfinal against the Bars. Normally, when a shock defeat hits a team like that, sometimes they could fall apart in the next game. But this Brigid team has so many experienced campaigners, so many experienced players. They know how to get over the line, that they kind of knew how to dig themselves out of that situation. And I think that was very, very impressive from them. And even to beat Roscommon Gales the way they did in that quarterfinal after the Michael Glavies game was very, very impressive. 11 points. Like, that's nearly the game over with, quarter of an hour left, even half time. Like, I watched one of the games to prepare for this as well and look at stats and stuff like that. They beat Western Gales in the second game. It was 323 to 15 points. But I think the score at halftime was something like 215 to 5 points. The game was over. And they have this sort of, if they have a run on a team, they can power on. And I think that's going to be very impressive from a Brigid's point of view as well. And yeah, like, I do think they have more experience in Scotstown, which will add to it as well. And they know how to close out games in normal time, which is very, very impressive as well, because there were stages in the Moycullen game where Moycullen were kind of pulling them back after the Rory Fallon goal, but they still held their own and they went over the edge and they got over the line in the end, which was very, very impressive from them. I wanted to ask Aaron a question on this, and this revolves around Scotstown and maybe about Brigid as well. For Scotstown, being involved in 3 extra times and 4 times, yes, it does show that they have resolved, but at the same time, 2 games in particular against Newbridge and Kilcoo, the game should have been put to bed a long time ago. and Scotstown didn't do. Kilcoo only scored, what was it, 2 points in the first half, and Scotstown didn't put them away. Would that be a concern in your opinion for Scotstown when you look at the way Brigid have put away teams on their run?
It definitely would be, yeah. It absolutely is. Like if you're not putting teams away, and you're looking at it from that angle, then absolutely, yeah, it is a concern. In regards to that, I think ultimately though they still have gotten over the line. Do you know what I mean? They've still gone down the other end, although it hasn't been pretty, although it hasn't been perfect. They've still popped up and got big points in big moments, and it's probably down to the sheer quality of the team that they have, that they've been able to dig themselves out in these moments. There is only so much you can get away with that. Like it's rare you see a team win an All-Ireland that way, where it's just every game is a basket case, and that's where you would say where they could potentially get caught. And that's why I probably wouldn't think that Scotstown can go all the way and win the All-Ireland. But I still think they probably have a little bit more firepower than Brigid's, in my opinion, to just see themselves through. But it definitely is a concern, yeah, because look, we've saw with Brigid's as well in the past, like even in the final a couple of years ago, like they don't back down, like they will keep going. And even against like if Scotstown have a 7-8 point lead, like it's going to give Brigid's are always going to be there, you know, and it'll be in the back of their heads, and I'm sure it'll be trained into them by management that, you know, like if a lead gets too big, you're always still going to be in it. You're always still going to have a chance. And for Scotstown as well, like when the going gets tough as well, you know, they probably fall back into that pattern again of here we go again. So yeah, definitely does make an impact. There's no doubt about it. There is the positive side of building the resilience, but you know, there is only so much you can get away with that, I suppose.
It is really interesting to look at, like, are they almost addicted to that? Like in a way that even in a situation then where they're ahead, they always somehow end up in a battle that goes right down to the wire. Gavin O'Reilly and Shane coming in with some good comments here. Gavin saying Brigid's got the job done in Connacht. They were solid, but they would have to improve defensively and on their kickouts in order to win the big prize. As a Rossi, that Michael Glavies was the equivalent to when Meath bet Kerry and kicked them up the arse. Matthew just said that as I was typing. Gavin says, if I feel like the quality in Ulster is harder, I feel like the quality in Ulster is harder than Connacht when looking at this Moycullen. We're solid, but Ballina were meh. Kilcoo and Newbridge just seem to have more fight overall. I would agree with that. I think it's more difficult to come through Ulster than it is to come through Connacht. And I think there's a reason why, you know, God, what am I saying? But there's a reason why, like, Kilcoo have won the All-Ireland out of Ulster very recently. Waddy Graham's Glen have won the All-Ireland out of Ulster very recently. They tend to have teams that are always in the final competing or one of the favourites and everything like that. And every year since we've been doing the pod, at the start of the club championship, you're looking north for a serious contender as well. You're looking at the Kilcoos, the Glens, and now the Scotstowns. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it goes. Shane down here, Dangan Kush and Brigid's to just about get over the line. So nailing his colours to the mast there. But of course, now it is that time. Aaron, if you want to throw it to myself. No, actually, Matthew, I'll give this one to you. Matthew, if you want to throw it to myself and Aaron, tell us to call it on what we think between Scotstown and Brigid's for this one.
So both sides have tested themselves in many ways in the Ulster Championship and the Connacht Championship throughout the way. But who do you think will get over the line in this All-Ireland semi-final? It should be a tight encounter, but who do you think will get over the line? Seamus, I'll go to you first.
It's very well put. It's a massively difficult one to call. Like, you're looking at the routes that they've both taken to get to this semi-final is unbelievable. Especially Scotstown have had to battle through every game. I'm going to shade this one to Scotstown. I just think you have to pay respect to the victories that they've had over the likes of Kilcoo, over the likes of Newbridge. I think they've earned their crust now. Like, you have to shade it to them when you're looking at the form that Rory Beggin's in, the form that Jack McCarran's in, players like Darren Hughes, Kieran Hughes, everything like that. This game will be a battle. Like, there's no question about it. It's going to go down to the wire. And Scotstown have a proven track record of getting over the line now this year when the game goes down to the wire. They did it against Kilcoo, did it against Newbridge. They did it in their own county final against Inniskeen. They have a proven track record of it. And I think in the dying moments there, they have the clutch players like Rory Beggin, like Jack McCarran, to make the difference, to make the 1.2 point difference that it's going to take. Brigid's are sensational, but I'm going to shade it to Scotstown.
Aaron?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Scotstown as well. I think they just have a little bit more firepower overall. I think they've got more around the middle, far more on attack, as we said, with Jack McCarron, Conor McCarthy, Max Power as well. So I think they're going to be far too much. They're going to be far too strong. And yeah, I'll go with Scotstown to come through it.
This might be the part where we all agree on the prediction. This isn't the case, though. I'm going Brigid. Simply because I feel like Seamus is saying there Scotstown have a track record of getting over the line, and they have the experience of getting over the line. I go to the other side. I think this Brigid's team, they've got over the line in all their semi-finals. This club has won an All-Ireland title as well. They got over the line against Castlehaven a few years ago, and that was a tricky game down in Thurles. And I think that experience will count a lot for them. With Scotstown, they have fantastic players. I think Rory Beggan will be a massive player. But at the same time, if Brigid's play smart, and I'm talking about play smart, if they don't concede frees outside the 2-point zone, and if they don't concede frees outside the 2-point zone, and particularly in a central area, and I think Brigid will have caught on to that. Look at Rory Beggan's record. Look at the scores there. I think Scotstown will be in a bit of bother there. And I think Graham Souness said this, and switching over to other sports now, but I've seen Graham Souness say this about Tottenham Hotspur reaching the Champions League final in 2019. You can't keep getting over the line when scraping wins in the last few minutes or getting through extra time. I think this Scotstown team have done this in the last few games, and I feel like Brigid's have got over the line with, professionalism, if that's kind of a word. So I feel like Brigid's have the experience to get over the line, and I feel like Brigid's will get to the All-Ireland final in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I do want to say there as well, lads. Max McGuire is what I meant to say. I think all the Christmas beer and the turkey and everything has gone to my it's gone to my head there. So yeah, we'll just move over that one.
What have I missed? I'm so confused.
I think I said Max Power or something like that, and then I was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, no, that's completely wrong. Yeah.
No, I thought you were just saying like they're at maximum power. That's genuinely what I thought you were saying. I thought you were like Scotstown are at maximum power. I was like, I'd never heard you say that before, but we'll go with it. The comments are divided on this as well. Dublin is great, says Brigid's to win by 1 after extra time. Peter says we'll go to extra time, cue the drama, begging to nail it with a 2-pointer. And Gavin O'Reilly saying the West is away. Groscommon double, I'm going to go with Brigid's and Strokestown to win at the weekend. All of them I could see happening. Like all of that I could see happening. I could see Beggin nailing a 2-pointer to win it. I could see Brigid's winning it after extra time. The one thing that seems to be a common denominator is a lot of people think it's going to go to extra time. But we'll see how it all unfolds on Sunday at 3 p.m. And that game is, of course, live on TG Cahir. Now, the other semi-final, this one is also going to be a barn burner. Dingle against Ballyboden St. Enda Saturday at 3:15 in Porky Queeve. And this one is also live on TG Cahir. Matthew, it's in your home county. What are you expecting from this one?
First of all, to answer any questions in the comments, put up their hands. Am I going to the game? No, I'm not. I'm not watching a Kerry and Dublin team playing Parky Keeve. You kidding?
Fair.
No.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, we'll move on to the game. Look, I think this is a semi-final that probably has the underdogs in terms of the All-Ireland. I think Scotstown and Brigid, a lot of people will point towards them as the All-Ireland favourites. This side of the draw, I don't think has that favourites tag. I think, again, like the Bars Munster final, a lot would have depended in terms of predictions on Mark O'Connor's availability for Dingle. And as Murphy has confirmed over the last few weeks, and Dingle have confirmed it themselves as well, Mark O'Connor will be available for this game because his AFL club have allowed him, Geelong have allowed him to stay for another few weeks. So I'm sure Ballyboden will be quaking their boots at the news of that. So it will be an interesting game. Look, you have Mark O'Connor coming up with Cian Darcy, which is a very interesting kind of matchup. You have up at the forwards from a Dingle point of view, you have, and we'll bring up the scores in a sec. Like out of their top 5 scores, 4 of them are Gainies. which kind of shows the family feel in the Dingle team with Paul, Connor, Dylan, and Niall. Niall's probably an underappreciated hero, in fairness. Thomas Sullivan has done really well for this Dingle team as well. Tyke de Bruyne at certain stages as well. So, look, Dingle have their firepower, and it is going to be interesting to see them as well. And they do have very, very good defenders. Like, they haven't conceded much goals as well, which is very, very impressive considering the size that they have come up against. Ballyboden, yes, they have won Dublin, and that is a very good achievement. But I question I would say the high quality that they've come up against in this championship. Like, I'd say the only sides that they've come up with really high qualities arguably Cúilín in the Dublin championship. The rest of it,
Cúilín for sure.
Cúilín for sure. But when you look at the rest of it, Nafina, I'm not entirely sure. Ballantyre St. John's, not entirely sure. Castleknock provided a bit of a test there, but it was a low scoring encounter. So
that was a game where like Castleknock were always at arm's length. Do you know what I mean? Like, you never bought for a second that Castleknock were going to win, and it was like slightly disappointing this year, Aaron. I'm sure you'll agree that the gap between the Cúilín, Kilmacud, Nafina, Bowden, the gap between the semi-finalists and the rest seemed way bigger this year than it has in previous years.
100%, yeah. And it does feel like that gap's ever so much growing, kind of year on year. Like, especially when Ballyboden are able to get lads from other counties. Nafina obviously do the same. Same applies with Kilmacud Crokes. Like, there's no, we're not signaling out one club in particular. It is the way of the Dublin Club Championship that a lot of these teams are able to bring in players from other counties, like with Ballyboden having Cian Darcy, with Nafina having Keelan Sexton, Crokes having Shane Walsh, just to name a few. Like, there's a few others obviously within the ranks there as well. It is an interesting perspective. Like, Cúilín last year, a lot of people said the same thing about them. They haven't been tested and everything else. I know RD St. Mary's pushed them a little bit closer in the Leinster final, but a lot of people were saying, the standard of opposition that they came up against and everything else, the same thing has been labelled Kilmacud Crokes as well. Like, I think the Dublin Club Football Championship is a lot stronger than people give credit for. Like, even teams like Castleknock, Nafina, these kind of teams. If Nafina were in Leinster, I think they'd win it as well. Do you know what I mean? I think if Castleknock were in Leinster, they'd probably win it as well too. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, now maybe it depends obviously who's in Leinster year on year. Like, the Leinster of this year, I think they win. So yeah, like, I think Ballyboden are coming in strong. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, like, the Dublin Championship is something they do hopefully need to address in the coming years.
Yeah, we have a few very interesting comments coming in here. St. Peter's there. Scotstown had to do a big fundraiser overnight for them. Gavin also saying, why is it in Cork? That's insane. You would imagine it would be in Mullingar or Tip or Offaly in the middle. No, Ballyboden look really good, but outside Croke Park would be tricky maybe. Well, I think it's a really good point. It's an interesting venue, I think, to select. I think it is definitely more in favour of Dingle, but if Bowden win, then the final is being played in Dublin. So I think if they can get through this one, they'll, especially with the Basquels and stuff like that, they'll have probably more experience in terms of playing with Croke Park. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how it goes. But let's jump into the deep dives on both teams. So we'll start off with Dingle. So their route to the semi-final in the Kerry Senior Football Championship. Obviously, this was the county championship. They beat Nagrail by 219 to 113, then West Kerry by 116 to 13 points, then Mid Kerry by 116 to 16 points, and then they beat Austin Stacks in the final, 213 to a goal and 12. Then in the Munster Senior Football Championship, they hammered Mungret St. Paul's 215 to 2 points, and then of course the cracking clash in the Munster final where they beat St. Finbarrs 118 to 20 points with that late free by Conor Gainey, the 2-pointer, which sent them into the All-Ireland semi-final and won them their first ever Munster Senior Football Championship. They've scored 9 goals and 97 points so far. That's an average of 215 a game. And they've conceded 2 goals and 76 points. That's an average of 14 points per game. So an average winning margin of 7 points. Their scorers then, Paul Gainey, no surprise, leads the way with 421. Conor Gainey with 316. Dylan Gainey with 18 points. Thomas Sullivan with 110. Niall Gainey with 11 points. And then you see down the list. So with Dingle, there's no question about it. There's one thing, Matthew, that I think you cannot overstate when you're assessing Dingle versus Ballyboden is there is an element of serious fortune that Dingle are here. And with Boden, that isn't the case. Since the two of them got into the provincial championships, Boden hammered everyone in their way. Dingle, that free could have easily been different. And then maybe St. Finbarrs are here. Or maybe Conor Ganey misses that free and the Bars are here. Is that something that will play on the Dingle mind? Do you think they'll feel like the underdogs coming into this clash?
If anything, I do feel like Dingle will come into this as favourites because they've got tested. Because I feel like any Kildare fans, correct me if I'm wrong now, but I feel like the Bars are a better team than Athenry. And I feel like the Bars are a better team than Scotstown, Liam Mellows. And I feel like the Bars are a better team than Tullamore as well.
Agreed.
So I don't think that kind of plays into it. That game could have gone either way because it was an instant classic. Like the Bars are a good team as well. Like it's two very good teams going at it at the same time as well. My kind of thing with Dingle, look at their journey to the final. I've been very impressed with this, looking at the stats and more than anything as well. In 6 games, they've only conceded 2 goals. They conceded a goal against Nagale and they conceded a goal against Austin Stacks. And even when I was thinking back at the Bars game in the Munster final, I don't think they conceded a goal chance, never mind a goal in that game. So I feel like their defence is going to be very, very tight on the Ballyboden and the Ballyboden team in many ways. And you look at the Ballyboden journey to the final, like they've scored a goal in every game in their championship other than the Castleknock game. I think if they are going to get a goal in this game, it's going to be very, very hard to come by. Because this Dingle team seem very, very set in their defensive ways. They seem a very good, an organised group there. They seem very good at midfield with Mark O'Connor. They were challenged all the way against that Bars team. In the first half, it went a bit awry around midfield with Ian Maguire and Brian Hayes getting out on top of that Dingle midfield containing Mark O'Connor. But as the game went on, Dingle started to get more confidence in midfield and they started to win more ball. That would have tested them a long way. And I know Cian Darcy's in the middle for Ballyboden, and that's a very, very big test as well, as big a test as the likes of Ian Maguire and Brian Hayes. But I feel like that would have road tested Dingle, and they'll be ready for this game against Ballyboden. It'd be a question from a Ballyboden point of view as well. Who do you put on Paul Ganey? Who do you put on Dylan Ganey? Conor Ganey? Like, there's a lot of threats there from a Dingle point of view. And again, you look at Ballyboden's run to the final. They've only kept 3 clean sheets. One against St. Vincent's, who, what I've been hearing from you lads, St. Vincent's are way off in Dublin. Would I be right in saying that?
They were way off it this year.
And you look at the other 2 clean sheets, Castletown, Liam Mellows and Tullamore, who, let's be honest, are way off in terms of Leinsters. I feel like Dingle have the capabilities of hitting the net. And I feel when you look at goals conceded, I think Ballyboden are more prone to conceding goals than Dingle are down the other end. And that could be a key facet in the game, as well as midfield. Like, I think the saying goes, you win midfield, you win the battle. I think Mark O'Connor, has the potential to override Cian Darcy. I really think so. I think he's an absolutely excellent midfielder. And that game against the Bars would have road tested him in so many ways. And the game against Austin Sachs, where you had Joe O'Connor and Ben Murphy around the middle of the park. Like, Ben Murphy's an AFL player. Like, that's an AFL to be player, let's just say. Joe O'Connor, other than David Clifford, Footballer of the Year. Like, this is the sort of talent that Dingle have come up against. So I feel like that, in a way, Seamus, I think that could be an advantage to Dingle, that they come up against the Bars, they've come up against Austin Stacks. And let's be honest, Mid Kerry as well. Mid Kerry are not a bad team either. They're a very, very well-resounding team as well. So I do think that would have tested Dingle all the way. And I'd be more worried about Ballyboden getting untested, if that's the way.
Yeah, no, it's interesting looking at it when you're talking about how kind of casual observers would look at this game. If you're looking at the scores that Boden have put up, if you're looking at how easily they've won those games, they seem to be coming in like a train. And it did feel like, look, it was amazing, but you can't say that it was anything other than a smash and grab at the end from Dingle with the late free. And then the minute it goes over, the game's done. Like, so I think it's a nice combination for Dingle because you're right, they've been a lot more through the fire than Boden have. That one game against Cúilín that Ballyboden have, that was their game where I thought they look good. They look really, really good. But apart from that, the Dublin final against Nafina was relatively straightforward. And then in the Leinster Championship, they have just kicked it into cruise control. And it will be difficult, Aaron, because they are going to get a huge battle off Dingle. Dingle are not going to take a back step at all. And before I throw it over to you, let's look at Ballyboden and their route to the semi-finals. So starting off with the Dublin Championship, bear in mind, they beat Na Fianna in the final of the Dublin Championship 116-112. They actually faced them in the opening round. And as you can see there, they beat them 4-23-3-9. They then beat Ballantyre 4-18-114 and beat Vincent's 216-12 points to top their group, 3 wins out of 3, and 3 easy wins at that. Then in poor conditions, they held Castleknock at arm's length, 11 points to 1-5. They then beat Cúilín in what was a thrilling Dublin semi-final. I was there for this. It was brilliant. They won that game 3-21-222. Then they beat Na Fianna in the pouring rain in the Dublin final, 116-112. Then in the Leinster Championship, they have, as we said, been relatively untested. They beat Castletown Liam Mellows 216-13 points, beat Tullamore 219-10 points, and beat Athy 218 to a goal and 14. They've scored a total of 20 goals and 158 points. That's an average of 218 per game. And they've conceded a total of 9 goals and 111 points. That's an average of 112 per game. So an average winning margin of 9 points. It's not bad at all. Their top scorer is Dara Sweeney, leads the way. He's been the leading light up front for them, 659 to his name. Ryan O'Dwyer has been superb as well, 327 to his name. Colin Basquel with 323, Ross McGarry with 119, and then you see down the list Ryan Basquel with 18, Cian Darcy with 17, and then down the list it goes. And again, another impressive spread of scores. But Aaron, obviously, we've been paying a lot of attention to Bowden the entire way through. What's been your take on them? What have you made of them this year?
Yeah, well, they've been brilliant. They've been absolutely outstanding, and look, that's a reflection of the score lines. The only game really where they have been tested, you would say, is that game versus Cúilín. And what's mad about that game is the only time they actually led in that game was literally the last kick of the ball, literally right at the end, which is kind of mad when you when you think about it. They were behind in that game and they came back. So at least they do have that game to kind of stand to them in terms of being behind. They were behind against the All-Ireland champions, and they had to really, really kind of dig deep and turn it around, and they were able to do that. It definitely is a concern, all right, because Dingle do have tremendous amount of firepower, and defensively as well. They have been quite strong in terms of conceding goals. It will be interesting though, because like Ballyboden, as you said, like they've scored 20 goals in 9 games, averaging over two goals per game. So it will be interesting to see. Obviously the standard, the levels that they'll be playing against Dingle will go up significantly in comparison to what they were playing, obviously, in Leinster. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. But they've tremendous firepower from Colin Basquel to Ross McGarry, Ryan O'Dwyer, who we mentioned previously. But it's even been players like Alex Gavin, I think, has had a really strong year. I think Peter Healy's been very good as well. He scored an excellent 2-pointer in the Dublin final versus Na Fianna. So they've been going very strong. It is one of them. There is obviously that unknown of, because of the fact they haven't been tested, Dingle could come out very, very strong and be 5-6 points up. It could take Ballyboden 15 to 20, 30 minutes to potentially get going. And obviously, Seamus, we saw it in the past as well with Ballyboden, where they can sometimes flatter to deceive a little bit, where they can have that game where they just don't turn up whatsoever. It hasn't happened so far this year, and you're hoping maybe that's a thing of the past from a Ballyboden perspective. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see who does tackle the Gainies as well. You're even looking at it there. Do they put someone like a Cathal Flaherty on them? You've got Shane Clayton, who I think has been very good in a full back as well. Peter Healy at wing back. So the matchups are definitely going to be very interesting. And as Matthew says as well, the battle between Mark O'Connor and Cian Darcy could go a long way to deciding who wins this.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few really, really good comments in here. Dublin is great saying bet of the week is poke games go to extra time. Wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Peter says we'll be low scoring in Dower, but going for Dingle by 4. Dubliners Great says Dingle by 2 or 3. Gavin has a great comment in as well. He says the only thing is Cúilín weren't tested last year in Leinster, maybe a bit more, but it didn't stop them winning the All-Ireland. I don't think it might affect Ballyboden that much. I think Cúilín is an interesting blueprint to look at, that Errigal Kieran in last year's All-Ireland final were the team that had come in, with all the tests and everything like that. Cúilín had come in after an easy enough Leinster championship, and then they beat Coolera Strandhill in the semi-final. Errigal Kieran had gone through the ringer in terms of beating, I think, who did they beat again in the semi-final last year? It was oh my God, my brain. It was Dr. Crokes that Errigal Kieran beat in the semi-final, and then they'd come through hell in the Ulster Championship, and they were the team that had gone through everything. In the first half, especially that All-Ireland final, Cúilín looked like they could run up a serious number. So the reality is like, I feel like the ball gets thrown in and then it's just its own game. And I've no doubt that Bowden will have been playing challenge games and everything like that to get themselves up to speed, because they're aware that the Leinster Championship has not been the level that Dingle are going to be at. Dingle are going to bring something entirely new. Dublin saying Cúilín did get tested by Tullamore. It was 110 to 10 points in that game. It was, but I think there were other games that Cúilín had that weren't particularly difficult. Now, it's that time. Aaron, you're pushing us to call it this time if you want to take it away.
Absolutely, lads. Yeah, well, I think it's definitely set to be a cracking game between Ballyboden and Dingle. So, Matthew, I'll throw it over to you. Let's call it. Who are you predicting to win it?
Not saying I want this to happen, but here it goes. I do think Dingle will get over the line this one, simply because I think they have a better defence. I think they've been road tested. Mark O'Connor being available is a massive coup for Dingle. Paul Ganey, Conor Ganey, like those amount of threats, I don't know how Ballyboden keep up with them. It's going to be very, very difficult to see. And I think the lack of maybe tests might catch up with Ballyboden in the end. Look, I've watched Ballyboden a few times. I watched them in the game against the Athy. Okay, they were good, but Athy weren't that great. I watched them against the Fianna, and I didn't think they were that great. I'll be honest with you, in the Dublin final. I've watched Dingle a few times against Austin Sachs and against the Bars, and I thought they were very, very good on both occasions. I think those games really tested Dingle in a way as well. And I think Páirc Uí Chaoimh is a massive factor as well. I think one of the comments actually was going after me saying that Paul Ganey and Conor Ganey and Dylan Gailey are used to winning Páirc Uí Chaoimh anyway, which is true. I'm going to concede that it is true. They are well used to doing that. So I think they're more used to the Páirc Uí Chaoimh pitch. I don't think much of the Ballyboden players have played there. So I think that is a definite factor as well. They know the surroundings of Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Dingle, and they know how to get over the line in those sorts of games in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I think Dingle will go over the line this one. I think Dingle will win this by 2 points.
Seamus, what are you saying?
Very, very, yeah. And Matthew puts it really, really well, especially with the Páirc Uí Chaoimh factor and the fact that most of the Bowden players probably haven't played there. But I am still going to shade it to them. I'm going for Ballyboden to win this. I think I just can't shake that I was there to see. I'm going for Ballyboden to win this. I was there for the Dublin football semi-final in Parnell Park. It was a thrilling contest. Cúilín had Ballyboden on the ropes. They were 5 minutes away from going out with the Dublin Championship, and the way that they rallied and turned the game around and eliminated the All-Ireland champions was so impressive. Their forwards are on fire. Dara Sweeney, Colin Pascal, Ryan O'Dwyer, they're lighting the championship up. Ross McGarry's been superb as well. They have such a range of firepower. And then around the middle, they have one of the best midfielders in Ireland right now in Kane Darcy. He is unbelievable. And at the back, they have the likes of Shane Clayton, Brian Bobbitt, Alex Gavin, who's superb as well, driving forward from the half-back line. They're strong all over the field. And I feel like in a game like this, you need squad depth. You need and Bowden have that in spades. I think it's going to be extremely tight. And the questions of whether Bowden have been tested in Leinster, I don't think they have. But I think that game against Cúilín showed to me that when they do get tested, they have the answers this year. So I'm going to shade it to them. Dingle have been fantastic, worthy Munster champions, worthy Kerry champions. But I feel like Bowden might just have a little bit too much firepower up front, and I'll shade it to Bowden.
Yeah, I agree as well. I'm going to go with Ballyboden as well. And what you do forget is, whilst it is a new team in getting to this kind of stage of the competition. You do have all other winners there. In the likes of Colin Basquel, you have Ryan Basquel, who still is in the squad. You do have players who have been there and done it. You have people around Ballyboden St. Enda's who've been there and done it in terms of the All-Ireland. You have coaches, you have preparation and everything else that goes into it. So, I think Ballyboden St. Enda's will be a lot stronger. I think Dingle do have a tremendous amount of forward power in terms of their attacking players, in terms of the gainies and everything else. But I think defensively they are weaker than what Ballyboden are. And I think Ballyboden can exploit that. And I know they've only conceded 2 goals, but I still think Ballyboden can get them and hurt them in that area. So, yeah, I'll go with Ballyboden by 2 points.
It's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Like, we've got some serious games this weekend. Gavin's saying I might go with Ballyboden just about. I don't want to be disrespectful to Dingle, but I think Finbarrs would have won this game. They looked class in the Munster final. I think Stephen Sherlock would have torn this game up for the Bars if he was in it. And it would have been very interesting to see how that would have played out. Just to give a big shout as well before we wrap up, the intermediate football semi-finals take place this Saturday at 1:15. On Gaeltacht take on Salins in Porky Queeve. And in the other tie, Scotstown face Glenullen at 12:30 in Ballyshannon. Aaron, I'll go to you first on these. What's your take on these 2 games? Any of the 4 that stand out to you?
Yeah, look, well, I know Gavin, who often tunes into the channel, there is a big Scotstown man, so we'll go for Scotstown to come through there. I know Paddy Bradley is involved with Glenullen. I think Owen Bradley's still playing with them as well, so they do have some very good players. But we'll obviously see what kind of happens in regards to that one. And then the other one, who's playing again in the other game?
On Gaeltacht against Salins.
Gaeltacht versus Salins, yeah. Like, I don't know. I'll throw it over to you lads. I wouldn't know too much now about either of them two, so I'll throw it over to you lads if you have any opinions to maybe offer in regards to that.
It was Salins. Salins obviously are from Kildare, and then they're coming up against on Gaeltacht. I think on Gaeltacht they're favourites in this game. You look at some of the players that they have. Brino Bjuglik has had the year of his life. He's been absolutely sensational for them. And then on top of that, they have Aidan Brannock, Aidan Walsh, obviously transferred over from his core club, and he's been doing really, really well as well. I've been impressed with on Gaeltacht so far in the highlights that I've caught and the clips that I've seen. I haven't got to watch a full game of them yet, so I couldn't say it with 100% chest that they're going to win. But if I was pushed on it, I'd probably I'd go on Gaeltacht and Scotstown. Matthew, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'd go for on Gaeltacht and Scotstown as well. Like on Gaeltacht, you mentioned Nero Begley and obviously the Cork man himself and Aidan Walsh. Like, they have had fantastic seasons. They beat Fossa in the Kerry final. That's very impressive. Obviously, Fossa have David Clifford in their ranks. I'm not sure the Pod Clifford playing that game. I'm not entirely sure of that off the top of my head, but that was a very difficult game against Fossa, and they got over the line in it. And against Athenry, they were very, very comfortable in that final. So I'd say on Gaeltacht will win that game. Look, Salins have some very, very good players as well. The likes of Luke Killian, the likes of Colm Dalton, who would have been Kildare under 20 teams down through the years. So they will be providing a test, but I think Gaeltacht are very, very strong. And the position that they are in Kerry, I think it's the 10th best club in Kerry. That's very, very impressive. So I think Gaeltacht will get over the line there. The other semi-final, Scotstown, I think looks stronger than Glenullen in fairness. Like, Glenullen, look, they do have some decent players, but probably aging. The likes of Paddy and Owen Bradley, like, they are aging players of 39, 40 years of age. I don't think that will be enough to get them over the line. And when you look at Scotstown, their star man is at the other end of the spectrum, Shane McGinley. You know, that Roscommon player that scored the belter of a goal this Tyrone. He's in this Scotstown team. He's a very, very talented player. So I would fancy Scotstown, as well as that they won the Roscommon Championship in senior level a few years ago. So, like, you'd have to be favourites for the intermediate if you managed to do that in the last few years. I think on Gaeltacht, Scotstown will be an interesting final if it does come to that next weekend. I think it's on Gaeltacht, Scotstown will win it. I think Salins have more of a chance to beat on Gaeltacht than Glenullen do against Scotstown, but we will see.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Gavin here with a good point says Insanity, it's in Donegal. Fermanagh or Tyrone would have been in the middle of Scotstown and the Derry team, who actually close. Antrim as well. I don't want to sound like Jimmy, but I don't get it. And then Shane here saying all 3 Kerry teams to progress, in my opinion. We are going to dive down to the Junior Championship. Then we're going to talk about the Junior Football Championship semi-finals. And we have, of course, Ballymacalliga going up against Grange Nolvan on Saturday at 2 p.m. in Rathkeale, while in the other tie, Kilteena go up against Clocker Era Og on Saturday at 12:30 in Carrick-on-Shannon. Matthew, I'll throw it straight back to you. What's your thought on these two games?
To be honest, the only side I have seen out of these four is probably Ballymacalliga in that game against Buttevant, and they were very impressive in that Munster Junior final. And the way they won the Kerry Junior Championship as well, I think they have been impressive throughout. And they're playing Division 1 football is what I know most about this team. They've played the likes of Stacks and Dr. Crokes in the league. I know the league isn't as same as the championship, but at the same time, that will give Ballymacalliga a lot of experience against a very good side. So I think that will definitely stand to them, and I think they will beat Grange Nolvan in this game. Don't know much about Grange Nolvan, only they beat a side that we don't want to say on this podcast in case of Snickers, but we will move on from that. Look at the other semi-final, Kiltime against Clocker. I don't know much about these two teams in fairness. Look, to be honest, just a hazard a guess, lads, I'm going to go Kiltime because I don't know much about these two sides, with the greatest respect to Mayo and Tyrone Junior Championships, but I'm just going to go with Kiltime because I've heard a few good things about them, so just going to go with them.
Very good. I think that brings an end to the show, lads. We have dived into all of the games that had taken place across this weekend, and that brings an end to it. And big shout as well to everybody that got involved with the end of year awards and everything like that. It really, really was a lot of fun discussing it as well on the end of year show. Do check that out if you haven't already. But nearly boxed the mic into the computer. But we're going to wrap it up there, folks. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back, as Peter said, on Sunday at 8 p.m. to do a full weekend review going through all of the games that we previewed in this episode. But until then, ta-ra.
Instinct, baby. Follow your instinct.